All right, guys, I'm going to do a video here, and it's actually for a buddy of mine online on the forum. He actually sent me a private message and was asking me quite a bit about wiring on his car. He bought an Easy Wire Universal 12-circuit kit just like I did, and he was wanting to know what connectors I use. Now, usually when you get a universal street rod style wiring harness for your car, they usually come with a whole bunch of these in there, just regular old barrel connectors with the plastic insulation on them. And I mean, for years, it's what I used with, the old school stripper and crimper tool. And then, I don't know, about 10 years ago, I bought these to crimp with. The cutting part on them, it's never been worth a crap. But anyway, these cheapies, actually, the cutters are better than these. But anyway, so what you sometimes get into is, like, I just did my taillight harness back here, and that's what made me think I'd better do this video for him. And anyway, you get back here and you have like two wires coming out of your taillights, and you have to cut it and barrel connect them, butt splice them back together basically. So if you have your plastic coated insulators on your barrel connectors and you've got two of them together, it's rather large with two of them together. It's kind of thick. So when you're trying to either tape it or put a loom over it or whatever, you've got a big spot in there. I think of it as a snake eating a mouse. It's going to have that hump in its belly. You'll see a snake with a big hump in it. But anyway, sometimes when you have a lot of them to put together, like say the headlight area on a Tri-5, you got to splice in a bunch of wires, and there's usually 3 or 4 of these together, so it makes it really large. So this is what I do. I don't use those anymore. I get non-insulated butt splices, barrel connectors. They're called many things. I get packages of them. But anyway, that's pretty much all they are. They're just basically without the insulation on them. It's just the metal. And of course you have to heat shrink them because you don't have an insulation on there. But anyway, I don't even use these tools here anymore. I bought these a couple of years ago. These are American Auto Wire. I bought them from Summit, both of them. They are rather expensive, but there is not a better crimper on the market, in my opinion. They're not a sponsor. They didn't pay me to say that. It's just a fact. They have a video on their own YouTube channel, and it shows how to use these and everything. And lots of good information in that video. But anyway, I got the blue ones are for the big stuff, and the yellow ones for the little stuff, which when you're doing a wiring harness in a car, this is the one you use the most. You will use the blue too, but the yellow is the one you do the most. Anyway, so as far as heat shrink, you can get heat shrink just about anywhere. Like my local Atwoods has little plastic containers of it. You can get all black, you can get red and black mix. I've even seen all white in a package. But I was surfing around on eBay a few months ago, and there was an ad on there, and it was cheap too. I don't remember how much it was, but it's a lot of different colors, but it was from these teeny tiny ones all the way up to very, very large ones. Packets like that, all the way up, different sizes. So I bought those. Now the cool part for me about the colors is you can kind of color code with your wire. Not all of them, but you can. Like on my engine compartment, I've got my coolant temp sense wire that is green, so I used a green on it. And my oil pressure switch is a blue wire, so I used the blue on it. There's not blue in this, but another one of the packages comes with blue. But anyway, just what I do. And anyway, so you can use your old school, crimpers to just smash this flat, but these American Auto Wires crimp these really awesome. I'm not going to crimp this because this is all I have left. I got to make them stretch. Anyway, usually the middle part of a connector has a seam in it, like a split line, and technically these American Auto Wire crimpers, if you get to looking, there is a point right here in the middle of this one. This is like rounded. This has a point in the middle. So if you have a seam in your terminal, let's see if I got one here. Right here, there is a seam right up the middle. So that little tooth sticking out in that slot in that is what you want to go down in that, because it basically pulls it over like a heart, like that. And it does a good job. Now, in my case here, I have a ton of the old school crimp, terminals that have the plastic on them. And, a lot of the times you can pull the plastic right off of it, and then you got a nice terminal. And anyway, so you can crimp that on the wire. And if you don't have a pair of these, get these. These are, I call them quick strippers. These things are awesome. They make your life very, very simple, pretty much. But anyway, I would stick that on like that, but don't forget your heat shrink tubing first. And you don't crimp very much, you just do a little bitty bit. And then I would stick that in there with that tooth on that one slot going down in the middle of that. My hands are sore, so I'm having trouble holding on to stuff. Anyway, you don't have to sit there and do that. I mean, keep in mind this metal's thin. I mean, it's soft. That's about all you got to give to it. And it folds it over like that, which I stripped too much wire off, but you get the idea of it. But then at that point, you put your heat shrink tubing on there, a little piece of it, and then heat it up and shrink it on there. And it'll kind of, basically it'll keep the connection from, corroding or something around right in there on the bare part. But I usually try to get them up there and get them down on that terminal part just a little bit, so when it pulls in, it's covering this end as well. But okay, so that covers that. Again, I'm not a professional wirer. I put a lot of wiring harnesses in, but a lot of them were back when I was doing them so much. I was just using the old plastic terminal barrel connectors. Now I use those in heat shrink. And when you're done, you've got these really small connections instead of these big large ones, so it's easier to tape up. When you tape your harness, if you're trying to make your harness look original like on a 55, they were taped, and it looks nice and even all the way down instead of having this big hump in it. But anyway, the other thing I wanted to talk about was drilling a hole in your body of your car to run a wire through, and you obviously always need a grommet. Always need a grommet. In my case, I have a little plastic, like a Tupperware container with a lid. So I have all kinds of different brands of rubber grommets. And usually when you buy them, they say what size hole they need to make them work. In my case, I have a big bucket of them, so I don't know what size hole I need. So what I do is I take a pair of calipers and I slip over that deal and I adjust it until it's hitting the inside of that, and then pull it off. That right there is the size drill bit I need. And I mean, you could turn if you have a digital caliper or whatever, you can use that as well. But what I basically do, because I can't see worth of crap to read all that fine crap on there, so I take a Harbor Freight step bit and I basically just go down through there like that until I find the one that fits. And you can see I've marked that with a blue Sharpie. And I actually just done the license plate light hole in my trunk floor right here and put a grommet on. Now, when you drill a hole in a car, you're going to get bare metal, obviously, and that's all you need is just a paint pen. When you drill it out, blow it off, to get the metal shavings out, and then take that paint pen and just bloop right around there, and you got a little bit of a coating on bare metal so it doesn't rust. But there's many different ways of doing wiring, many ways. It's just like painting a car. Everybody's different, so like when I see somebody do it, they're not doing it the right way, and somebody's going to see this video that's professional and be like, well, that's stupid. I don't really care. This is just me. Also, this is another thing I'm going to cover because he did ask about this specifically as well. I have a big bench vise on the bench over there, but in some cases, like last night, I put a cable lug on my main battery cable to go to my starter up there. I've already got the cable bolted to the frame, so I didn't want to go and take everything loose. I just basically did it up here on the floor by the car, and I used this, a little cheap, vise, but it has a little rubber pad on the bottom of it. But this always sits on the shelf. This is my mobile one, because if I have to repair a cable lug or something out in the driveway or something, I can do it right there without having to remove the whole thing. So I'll take a lug like this, and I'll crimp it in there with the, whole side up. And Last night I used all my solder, so I'm out of solder, but I had a giant roll. I mean, I don't know the gauges, size, and all that crap, but it was, yeah, what's it called? I can't even think of it. It's solder, but it's hollow in the middle, and it has the flux crap already in it. Anyway, so I basically take dikes and I cut little pieces and I just throw them down in there, just pile it up, and it'll eventually come out to the top. Then I'll take a propane bottle torch. Let's see if I can find that. That way you'll know for sure what I'm talking about. Some people know what a propane torch is. Should have had that out. This rig right here. These are handy, the clickers anyway. Anyway, I'll heat that up, heat that lug up right there, move all the way around, and that stuff will just melt and it'll fall down in there. So at that point, I'll shut this back off and I'll cut mortar solder and shove it down in there until it's level with the top again, and I'll heat it up again. Now what you want is about halfway up that lug or a little over half. If you fill it all the way to the top, it's going to splash everywhere. Like I got a little bit of splash on this last night. But anyway, heat all that up, and when it liquefies, I might add, you need to have the shielding cut off this, which I don't. This is a scrap piece, and the lug I'm using is for a smaller cable. This is not even for this. This is just for display purposes. But anyway, you want to pre-fit that before you put the solder in there. Make sure you don't have the shielding hanging way off of that. You want it to be touching that lug, or it's going to look funny under the heat shrink. But anyway, once that liquefies, I'll shove that down in there and I'll hold it. Try to get her right in the center and just hold it. I'll set that down, turn it off real quick, and I have my air hose with my blower ready, and I'll sit there and cool that and just kind of work my way around it with a blower, because the shielding, you know, that lug is hot as heck, so it'll start melting that shielding. But anyway, then when it's cooled down, then you can put your heat shrink tubing on there. And I can tell you this on heat shrink tubing, and again, a lot of people know this, but you know, I'm gearing this video toward a buddy of mine, Andrew, that's he's never wired a car before, but I encourage anybody to try it. I mean, you ain't got nothing to lose but burn your car down. That was terrible. I shouldn't have said that. You have to learn somewhere. I mean, I always look at it as if a man did it, a man can fix it, and that's just me. But anyway, the heat shrink here, you put your piece on there. Now, if you do not have a heat gun, mine's just a Drill Master from Harbor Freight, like 10 bucks, I think. If you don't have one of these, you can use a cigarette lighter. Don't hold it on a spot. Keep it moving pretty steady and work your way around. Don't stay in one spot too long, because it'll actually melt that. It doesn't really melt it, it just kind of ruins it where it doesn't pull in anymore. But anyway, that will work. But if you're using colored ones besides black, it leaves a black soot on there, sooty goodness, we'll say. The heat gun does not do that. So if you're going to use a red battery cable and a red heat shrink, use the heat gun, because it does a really nice job as well. But that is pretty much it. I just try to cover. It's just a quick thing. And again, I'm not a professional wire. I'm just doing this for a buddy that was curious. He's just curious as to how I do it. This is not necessarily a how-to video on how you should do it. I'm just showing you this is how I do it. I am always on a budget, and I do stuff kind of my own little way. And anyway, if all you have is the old school crimpers, they're fine. You can just crush those connectors, that's fine. But I would recommend to get just the non-insulated terminals. These things are all over Amazon and all over eBay. I actually got mine at my local Napa. So if you have a Napa in your town, or that's easy for you to access, go to their electrical department before you wire your car. They got some neat stuff on those racks. You'll see all kinds of neat loom clamps and connectors and all kinds of cool stuff. And I'll show you something else I got. I had not seen them before. I have not seen these before, and they've probably been out for 20 years, but I'm just a dumb redneck. I don't know any better. When I do an ignition switch on a Tri-5 like mine, the original ignition switch takes spade connectors, or you buy a mini starter for your small block Chevy and it just has a spade for your solenoid wire. I usually use a plastic insulated, the big yellow crimp connector on there. And the wire always has to go out and come in like that. So I actually found these at my local Advance Auto. It's a 90-degree yellow spade. So I thought that was kind of cool. And anyway, I used one last night on my solenoid wire on my mini starter. And instead of the wire coming out and going like that, it just goes straight down. I thought it was kind of cool. But I'm easily amused because I'm just a redneck. But anyway, guys, I hope that helps somebody out. Maybe you picked up something in there you thought was cool, and maybe you think I'm just an idiot. I don't really care. It's just the way I do stuff.